Hello and welcome back to Silent but Obedient. We've got a great topic today. I'm excited to get into it. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy. Many people believe that the founding of American government is kind of crude and insensitive, that it understands that people are basically selfish, and it sets them off against each other so that they can't hurt each other. And while there's definitely some truth to that, we also need a wise and virtuous people, and I'm afraid we've lost that virtue. Now, virtue is not an easy word to define, and to do so, I'm going to be using Aristotle's definition. To understand virtue, we must first understand happiness. Happiness is, as Aristotle understands it, is not the way we typically understand it today. What Aristotle means by happiness is a complete way of life, a full life. That's what it means to be happy. Aristotle tells us that whatever happiness is, if it is a complete life, then it is going to correspond with what is proper to our nature. So it's going to fulfill whatever things make us human. And he uses a word for this. He calls it virtue. Virtue requires high moral standards and is simply the perfection of a thing. It's a thing in all its excellence. That's why we need virtuous people. We need good people and we need excellent people. Western civilization is entirely based on excellence. So, how have we lost that? Through a lack of self-respect, self-reliance, and welfare, along with mass immigration accompanied by a slowly degrading culture. It's also not uncommon nowadays for people to be incapable of piecing together an intellectual and cohesive argument. Thomas Aquinas lays out the ideal way to form an argument in what he calls the parts of a disputation. In order to form a valid argument, you must 1. Pose a question, 2. State the objections, 3. Give the contrary, 4. Give your reasons to support the contrary, and 5. Reply to objections. These are the parts of disputation, and you'll see here that it not only applies to forming arguments, but it's also the progress you should go through when thinking critically and making decisions. If you have an idea, you should take everything you have and throw it at that idea, and that's called critical thinking. And if it survives that, then you've got a solid idea, right? So, I think a large portion of the country has abandoned this in pursuit of their passions. We've become more impulsive people. Passions are always running through you. They're like appetites. If you didn't have appetites, you wouldn't know what to do. So, how do you reconcile what you might want at any moment with what is best for you? So, that's the big question. Passion versus reason. Or as the famous Jordan Peterson would put it, order versus chaos. You need all of these things, but in the right amounts. You need your passions and your appetites, because without them, you're blind. But you need a reason so that you can make smart decisions, so that you can be a useful and functioning person. I think we've swung too far towards the chaotic left. We now follow our passions more than our reason, and what follows is the end of the virtuous America our founders hoped for. And you often see on the left this hatred of family and country. That's why organizations such as BLM wish to destroy the nuclear family, because ultimately, love of country is just an extension of love of family. And we aren't allowed to love our country anymore because it's racist and we stole the land from the natives. So we can see here that the left tends to blame basic human tendencies on colonialism and early America. This human tendency of ours to conquer civilizations and use resources to our own benefit isn't a symptom of colonialism or the Western world, it's a natural human tendency, and they continue to blame human nature on colonialism. And if we as a society do not take it upon ourselves to live good and moral lives, to have self-control and be disciplined, then we will wake up under tyranny. Because a society without morality, with no discipline, is a society without purpose. And a society with no purpose is a society that sees no reason for its own self-preservation and greatness. And the tyranny will not come from outside of us. It will come from within. We will end up voting it in. When we've lost our purpose, morale, and discipline, we will rather be taken care of than take care. When we lose our will for self-preservation, we will welcome our own destruction as a kind of relief. And we already see this happening in a multitude of countries throughout the Western world. We aren't allowed to love our country, and its heritage must be thrown out the window so as not to get in the way of our new religion, a mix of Marxism and gender theory with a dash of nihilism, mental illness, and consumer culture. So how do you fight back? How does one even begin to retake the culture? This is something I've been thinking about a lot, and I think I have an answer. The only way we can ever begin to gain control again is to take back the institutions, unless you want to go start a civil war, which good luck, buddy. Nobody's prepared for that. People are wimps now, and I just don't think we have that in us. So the only way we're ever going to do that is by, electing people that stand for our values. And at this point, we've basically lost education along with many others. But how do we do it? You notice that whenever you talk to somebody with different political beliefs, especially people on the left, they've been taught to frame this conversation in a certain way. They attack you. Instead of, why do you support the Second Amendment? It's, how could you support guns? Are you okay with people dying? You see what they're doing here? They framed the argument to make you look like an unempathetic right-wing extremist. Why do they do this? Because they've been taught to view you as the enemy. to view you as a fascist Nazi. And you would never entertain a fascist Nazi's ideas now, would you? So what can we do to combat this? We have to reframe the dialogue. It has to be, what? You don't think we should secure the southern border? And really? You don't think we should be able to defend ourselves? You see what we're doing here? We are reframing the question. No longer are you the fascist who hates immigrants and defends school shootings. You're a rational person with a rational argument. It's all about perception. And so, while we continue this battle for the heart of America, we continue to forget this one core principle. A being that hates itself will never survive. And in turn, a country that hates itself will never survive. So, what will you do? Will you allow them to belittle your ideas, mock your principles, and indoctrinate your children? Or will you fight back using properly framed, rational, and critically conceived arguments? And while America continues to careen towards the chaotic left, it's not lost yet.